Now what's next for CS2 is a very important aspect. That's because we could have a potential case on the horizon. Now I don't think this is the most likely outcome at this point, but it's definitely on the table. We are at a record long pace between the previous case and now, and that only creates a bigger opportunity when it comes to these active duty cases on the potential output they could have if they get removed. Now we can go and look at the past ones and see that a lot of them were extremely cheap, and that's why they were able to see some massive growth. Focusing in on these ones specifically, I don't think they specifically have the potential of the previous ones, but that's also a decision for you to make.
SkinSwap is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free bonus for signing up with the first link in the description. They're the premier place for CSGO and Rust skins, with a massive trading site and a top-of-the-line marketplace, offering you the most competitive rates out there and a massive 40% bonus when you're using that link in the description. Combine that with their top-of-the-line selling feature with many payout options, and their trading feature legitimately taking you just about a minute, and there's no reason not to sign up with that first link in the description.
However, more importantly, I want to talk about what's been going on for the first CS2 major, the one in Copenhagen, because there's been a lot of changes that Valve has really not stated. The first of which is there's going to be no guaranteed spots. No, previously the way it would work is if you won the major, you would get a legend spot along with some other teams. That's not the way it works anymore. Instead, it's going to be split up like this, and this is the Valve rankings right here. We've got the 17 top teams for the EU, the 5 top teams for the US, and then the 2 top teams for that Asian qualifier. This is really interesting because it means there's going to be no slackers theoretically making their way into the major, considering everyone is going to have to fight for their spots in the Valve point system. Along with that, Valve has gone ahead and changed the way you're going to be buying your capsules if you're on 2 different currencies. We already mentioned it, but the Argentine peso and the Turkish lira are no longer going to be able to buy these major capsules. This is very important because we can look at what happened with Stockholm, where people could buy them for 15 cents on the Turkish lira. That's theoretically not going to happen anymore. Same with the Argentine peso. When we're talking about Paris here, people were able to buy them for very cheap. This is really good if you're a capsule investor, because this means a lot of people are not going to be just buying these capsules to instantly sell them on the market for a profit, which was a major problem that we saw with a couple of the previous majors. Now with the next major, it's actually extremely plausible we're going to see a brand new format for the way capsules are. Right now we have the legends, we've got the contenders, and we've got the challengers, but instead on the new format, those could possibly go right into one specific capsule. This is exactly what Valve just did with Dota. They took the brand new system and turned it all into just one specific capsule, which is extremely plausible to happen with CS2, especially considering this is probably going to be the easiest way for Valve, considering all of these teams are now going to be smashed together. We're not going to have the divide of the legends, the challengers, and the contenders like we had previously. We might see 2 different capsules, one for the stickers, one for the autographs, but I think this is almost guaranteed to be the format we see if Valve decides to go down this route. Now this theoretically could have a huge impact on Paris specifically. There's 2 different areas. Obviously we've got the capsules and we got these stickers. The first one is going to be the capsules. Now if Valve goes ahead and releases these 3 capsules into one for the next major, I think it's going to have a pretty positive benefit when we're talking about these Paris capsules. They're going to look a lot more desirable, especially supply-wise. I mean, think about how many were listed for the legends, the contenders, and the challengers. Combine that number into one by adding them all up, and it's probably going to be significantly more than that because people are just going to buy a lot more of this specific capsule. Basically, any profit opportunity that was there because a capsule was underinvested into previously would not be there anymore, and I think people are going to look at the Paris capsules that way, and therefore it could turn out pretty profitable for these ones if this is the format Valve decides to go with, which is obviously not guaranteed. Now the other opportunity for profit is obviously going to be those Paris stickers specifically, just because they are a little bit cheaper than Stockholm and Antwerp, and with this we're going off the presumption that Copenhagen would have to be borderless, otherwise it wouldn't be a fair comparison to start. But the basic thing we're going to be looking at here is the fact that Paris does have a decent amount of unique stickers, or ones without any borderless alternatives, and it could be very possible that if we see the one capsule format for the Copenhagen major, it would be a very similar situation to what we saw for the Maus Hollows. We can see with Stockholm, obviously there was a little bit of a status with that one. It's why it was so expensive, and even though it dropped down quite significantly because the alternative was released, it still kept a decent price with it just because the rarity it had around it. Now obviously there's no guarantee that this would happen because Copenhagen would go ahead and release, but the thought is if Copenhagen released and there was just thousands upon thousands of every sticker that had no alternative here for Paris, it could help the ones from Paris increase in price. There's no guarantees like I've mentioned, but it's definitely a possibility if anything is going to happen because of this. Now with all that being said, should this be a reason for you to go ahead and invest into Paris stickers or Paris capsules? In my honest opinion, I think that's a clear no. I don't think this is something that should specifically tip you into investing into this area, but I would say if you've already got investments or you're potentially looking to get into this area specifically, I think it's just another great reason or great possibility that Paris brings along with it. If we see this, I honestly don't think it's going to be negatively impacting Paris. If we just see one capsule for Copenhagen, that's probably going to be more of a benefit for Paris and a negative for Copenhagen in my honest opinion. opinion. Now, because I was really interested about all of this, I went ahead and I reached out to the team Sprout. Now, if you don't know them, they're probably most recently in the news because they just sent over the newest Navi player of Wonderful in replace of Simple. But other than that, they've been in a couple majors. More specifically, they were just in Rio, so they've got a lot of knowledge about how everything works, and this is basically the rundown they gave me. Now, first of all, I think it's highly unlikely we see everything pushed into one capsule, and we're almost guaranteed to see two different capsules, one with the autographs and one with the stickers. That's because every team does not even get a percent of the autograph capsule. That goes directly to the players, or at least how it's done in Sprout, and they said that no team is actually earning any money as an organization because of this autograph sticker, which is very interesting and not something I explicitly knew. They also said that a lot of different teams also are giving a percentage of the overall team capsule budget back to the players themselves and the coach, because usually the coach is a little bit more forgotten about in this sense. Now, it's a little bit hard to say whether this is something that's baked into the contract when they first sign on with the team, or if this is something just done as a goodwill gesture. I think it's probably going to be a mix of both depending on what organization you go to. And finally, they said that there's actually no Valve agreement that they have to sign to go ahead and not disclose the amount of money they make because of these major capsules, but it's pretty much agreed upon by all the organizations that they're not going to explicitly state it. And honestly, in my opinion, that's probably not to attract more competition considering this area is already so competitive. Now, focusing in on the rare case market, because this is a future of the market video, we're not seeing anything too crazy. A lot of them have pretty much reached their equilibrium price point of roughly around $1 for a couple of them, and usually not too far off for the other cheaper rare cases. In my honest opinion, I think this is a very good position if you're an investor, because this means we're starting to see the end of the decrease, especially for this area specifically, which is awesome considering we know the unboxing numbers are still going absolutely wild for a lot of these cases. Now, in my honest opinion, I don't know if I would explicitly say to pick these up at the current price point, but I can pretty much think that everyone agrees that the fact that these are no longer decreasing is going to be a much more beneficial thing moving forward, especially considering the market is not in the most optimistic feeling as of right now. Otherwise, when we're focusing in on play skins specifically, it seems like we've probably reached the end of the losses there as well, which is a really good thing, especially considering when we're focusing in on the player count, it still does look like a pretty dire situation. But I think once again, when we're looking at everything CS2 related, people tend to overreact significantly. You look at every small issue that occurs and people expect it not only to be fixed instantly, but question why it was even in place in the first thing. And I don't think this is a really healthy mindset for so many different people, because they're looking at everything like the game is polished and ready to go. And when we look at the play skin market, I think people are starting to realize that a little bit more. Obviously, the prices were definitely inflated because of the high expectations that came along with this area, but I think it's also fair to realize that a lot of the standards that were put on Valve here were pretty much impossible. They were very unlikely to release a fully polished game, especially considering we knew that there was a timeline, and the timeline was that CS2 major. But that's pretty much all I got with you guys. So much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.